If you're a woman in the workforce of any age at any point in your career, have you ever wondered how your experience differs from your male counterpart when it comes to your job search process? It can be different in a lot of ways, and today we're going to talk about my experience, our new marketing coordinator Sydney's experience, and just kind of dive into some of those differences. So Sydney, this is a really good time to talk to you about this because you're fresh off the job market. I mean, first week here. So dive into your experience a little bit with what your process applying and interviewing looked like.
Yeah, so after I graduated my boot camp of the UX UI design certificate, I was applying to everything creative. So that was from graphic design, marketing, advertising, all of that to get my foot in the door. I just noticed in general that every single application I applied to, there was 100 plus applicants, like whether that be man, woman. But I think when it came down to the competitiveness, I noticed that in more like IT related jobs, I felt as if I had to put more on my resume to really stand out from the crowd. So I think the main struggle was not even when it came down to the gender competition, but more so how many people were looking for jobs, especially in the creative space, because they knew that there's a lot of offerings and a chance to be able to follow their career there or even the IT space. So all in all, I noticed that there's more candidates out there than there are job offerings. So that was the biggest competition, was to compete with these well-versed professionals that had the same skill set as me. So it was coming down to, okay, how will I stand out from the crowd?
Yeah, and I totally believe it because, I mean, in us looking to fill this marketing coordinator position, we saw the same thing. I mean, hundreds of applications over, about a month. So truly, there's a lot of competition just in your kind of space in general. But yeah, I mean, it's always competitive, and then making sure you stand out among all the applicants, men and women. So I would say something that's just kind of funny from my experiences, especially in trucking and logistics, since I've been in this industry, but even before. I have a gender neutral first name. Mm-hmm. So when I'm communicating with people just like via email or text message, like you would not believe how many people respond and say, oh, Mr.,
right.
Whatever, or thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
I get it all the time. And it's just funny that I think people are like surprised that I'm like a woman when I actually pick up the phone and call them. I actually had someone last week that was like, oh, I was expecting a call from Taylor. And I was like, this is Taylor.
This is Taylor. Yeah.
So that's just something funny that I've kind of experienced in job searches and in roles past and
that's for me as well. Like the Sydney and then the Sidney Crosby joke, if everything. So
that's true. That's very true. Obviously, we work in a very male-dominated industry here. So I think, I don't want to say it's harder to work in this industry as a woman, but you see it less often. So you diving into this industry for the first time, what are your thoughts or reservations about that, or challenges you think you may have?
Yeah, so in general, I've never worked for a logistics company yet, so I didn't have the knowledge coming in. I do have some friends and family that work within the space, so I already had the idea of what I was getting into. And obviously, as a woman, I always had that fear of like being accepted, not being heard, if it's a more male-dominated industry. But I've had that sales experience even in college when I was in analytics classes. I would always just be like the only woman in class. So I'm kind of used to that. And if anything, with my experience, it made me more confident. So no matter what crowd I was in, but joining this company specifically, like right off the bat, I felt very comfortable, especially with like Chuck, Mike, and then walking in, like all the guys are very friendly and it's just the environment. So that kind of eliminated my fears. And then in general, I think it's just all about culture and how the workforce is accepting
Definitely.
the new person. So I think in general, like this company does a really good job with that. So it just eliminates that fear of, oh, I'm like the only woman with Taylor, So I think that this company just does a good job with that.
Yeah, it's something really strive for and push, in our culture. I mean, we've in general been trying to just increase the number of women that work here in general in all of our offices because, it's tough with sales being male dominated, logistics being male dominated, put them together, and it's hard. So definitely something we've been actively trying to do is increase our hiring just, with women. So definitely glad that you're feeling that culture, feeling that it's positive. and that you're enjoying the environment so far. I think I had a very different job search experience from you, just being the time period I was job searching in. Back in 2020, I was like serving and bartending, and I was finishing grad school, and then of course all the restaurants closed. And most people were happy to sit at home and do nothing. I can't do that. So I was actively looking for a new job during that time when no one wanted to be working and everyone wanted to be home. So I started a new job back in May of 2020. I had stayed there about 7 or 8 months, and then I came here in February of 2021. So both times I feel like we're way less of a competitive market, just with it being so right in the midst of COVID. So I do think just kind of what's going on in the world obviously affects it just as much as age, gender, anything else that we feel affects our job searches.
100%. And even too, I've noticed I've had interviews where it was a group interview. So like on the topic, I was competing with, different men, women of all sorts. But there's this one panel interview I remember. I was the only woman in it. And then I was with 3 other guys. And it was for a more male-dominated industry, not necessarily logistics, but anyways, they would ask the group questions, and I'm a personality. I'm very outgoing. I can be assertive, but I felt as if I could never get my point across, because everyone else was of the same personality. It's like a marketing design role, so you kind of have to be able to communicate with stakeholders, the team itself. So I think at that point I realized, what, I need to be more assertive and more outgoing to set myself apart. So, COVID, yes, it was very inclusive or, secluding with being at home. And yes, more people wanted to find jobs, but that was its own challenge. But now it's, there's jobs out there, but there's so many candidates coming from that. So there's always difficulties in each realm, but
absolutely, setting yourself apart from everyone else is huge. And while it can be easy to do that in person, it's harder on paper, right?
So much harder on paper. And I was always like, just get me to the interview process. Just meet me, please.
That's exactly. I'm the kind of person that I'm like, if you meet me in person, you will want to hire me. I promise
100%,
you.
yes.
But it's getting past that point of please look at my resume along the 150 others that you're looking at too. Can definitely be tough. So I don't know if you'd see it a lot in your space and more kind of marketing and creative world, but I see when I'm looking at someone who's been more in marketing and design roles, those are the people who I see adding color to their resume and actual photos and things like that. So it's funny because it's just a much different approach from my resume is straight to the point, basic, not too many words, so that it actually gets read all the way through. So it's even funny how just those things differ from kind of department to department.
No, it is. And I always notice that too. It's the color, they always tell us with the cover letter to add a picture in your portfolio to stand out. So there's so many things different in this creative space for sure.
Well, welcome, Sydney. We're so happy that you're here and, glad that you joined our team. And we'll look forward to having more chats with you in the future here. And if you're watching this, we'd love to hear from you on your experiences with your job search application interview process.